Comic Timing is member supported by listeners like you over at patreon.com/comic timing. We thank you so much for any support that you give to the show. For as little as $1 a month, you can join up and get some behind the scenes goodies like diaries, some early releases, possibly some other bonus material to come exclusive for the Patreon, and maybe even some stuff that will eventually wind up on the feed that will just come out on the Patreon much, much earlier than the feed. And we thank you so much for your continued support in any way that you can give it over at patreon.com/comic timing. Hey there, folks. My name's Ian Levinstein, and welcome to episode 228 of Comic Timing. And we're back for part 2 of our X-Men, I guess you could say, not quite retrospective, but just more the From the Ashes reviews as they are coming out. We've got 3 more of those books that we're going to be covering here. Brent Casina returns once again with sick kids that are hopefully feeling a little less sick. Brent, what's going on?
They're fine. They're fine. I feel faked out.
They were just playing hooky, huh?
You know, you say you got fever and chills and a body ache and you have no fever, and then you're fine by the time you get to the doctor's office at 10 o'clock, and you're going, should I send this kid back to school?
Oh, boy.
But then do I have to go back to work?
I mean, we've all done that at least some point in our life. Well, they know how to put a water bottle under their pillow to simulate a fever and get off a day's work. So,
I mean, I've already called out for the kid. I called out for me. Like, I'm going to call in. Everybody's going to be like, why are you back? I'm like, well, you're right. I should turn around and leave.
That's fair.
At that point, you're committed.
Yeah.
You are. Speaking of, and why are they back? Ladies and gentlemen, the Raging Bullets crew. Sean Whalen joining us once again. Sean, welcome back.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And, of course, Jim, the Duke of, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Doing good. So this episode, we are going to cover Uncanny X-Men, Phoenix, and Exceptional X-Men. And I decided not to cover X-Force. That was kind of my decision when I was suggesting it, just because I don't know why, but for some reason I have the least interest out of all of these books in
and Wolverine.
Oh yeah, and Wolverine. But Wolverine.
This is a solo title we're doing, but
yeah,
not Wolverine.
Yeah, it's Wolverine to me is his own thing. And even more so than Phoenix, because obviously Phoenix has been a member of the X-Men for many, many years. I feel like Wolverine's the established solo book, and Wolverine gets to do his own Wolverine thing. But I may come back and touch on that at a later point. But I figured, it makes sense to do 3 in one episode and 3 in the other. And these were the most interesting to me when I pitched it in the first place. So X-Force and Wolverine are out there for people to read. We're just not going to be covering them on this particular episode. Did any of you read Wolverine or X-Force?
I read X-Force and I loved it.
Oh yeah, really?
Oh god, yeah. It was funny. I picked up X-Force, not Phoenix initially, because I figured, we're doing X-Force because we're doing all the X books. Then I was talking to Sean. He's like, yeah, Phoenix. I'm like, oh, we're doing Phoenix instead. Okay. So I ran out. I picked up Phoenix.
All right. That's fair. Maybe X-Force does have to be on my radar after all. Sean, did you enjoy it?
I did. It was like you, because X-Force has had a lot of different iterations along the way. Some I've really enjoyed and others not as much. This one, at least out of the starting gate, I'm intrigued to see where it's going to go.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Brent, did you dig it as well?
I thought it was okay. I think most of these books I like better with the additional issues. I don't think number 1 grabbed me, but when I read number 2, I was like, okay. But yeah. I don't know if I'm going to rush back to it. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a premiere run of X-Force.
I think one of the things that may have actually turned me off to it initially is that it looks a lot like the team that was in Extreme X-Men back in the day, but by Claremont. You know, it's got Betsy Braddock, Psylocke. It's got Sage. It's got Rachel Summers. It looks like it might even have Warpath to a point. So like it's a lot of what was going on in that, only repackaged as an X-Force book, possibly with some Deadpool thrown in there for good measure, because you got to put Deadpool in an X-Force book eventually. So
Yeah, I think they called Deadpool a guest star in the first issue, and I'm like, why would you put him on the cover of #1 to sell it and then make him a guest star?
that's true, because it's not like Wolverine was on the cover of X-Men #1, even though he shows up in X-Men #1. So yeah. Good point. Well, they know how to sell books, especially when a Deadpool Wolverine movie is out in theaters, and that is clearly the way to do it. But as previously stated, we're going to be doing Uncanny X-Men. We're going to be doing Exceptional X-Men, which I keep trying to call Extraordinary X-Men, even though it's not, and Phoenix in this particular episode. And gentlemen, how about we start off with Uncanny X-Men, as that is probably the most anticipated of the books amongst us. And of course, this is Gail Simone's first shot at a mainline X-Men book. Obviously, she did write Deadpool back in the day, and she's done some side stories in some, like annuals and stuff like that, but never an ongoing main X book. And this is the first time Gail Simone gets to do that here with Uncanny X-Men, along with Dave Marquez on the artwork, along with Matthew Wilson on the colors. And this book also is probably one of the most streamlined of the teams, or at least to start here it is, as we're definitely team building, and we may potentially get other characters as the issues go on. But in this first issue, it's Gambit, it's Rogue, it's Wolverine, and then by the end we have Nightcrawler in there for good measure. So the team is forming, and it's off to a nice slow and steady start with this first issue. Brent, your initial takes on Uncanny X-Men #1.
So I searched for this after it came out, so I got the Rogue cover. I don't know how many other different covers there were, but this is the only one I could find, and there were like 2 left. That's what I get for waiting. Yeah, I thought this one, like, there was no hook to me. They established there's some weird mystery going on at the school. And if you're watching the video, I'm showing you on the pages so you can follow along. There's some dude that's captured. I don't know who that is. And I don't know who this character is that's like heading this jail at the school. Of course, there's no reasons why, but that's all you see of it in the first issue. And then you get a prolonged action scene between Rogue, Gambit, and Wolverine, which, while I don't mind, it felt kind of like filler. Like, to me, this is more of a Gail Simone pitch story to readers, being like, hey, remember me? I haven't been on many major books in years. I personally don't know what she's been doing. I know probably working, but just not on stuff that I follow or for the big 2. But it was like, hey, I'm returning the big 2. Remember, I can write good characters and good action and heartfelt scenes. And that's basically what's in the story. But is it a hook for the story for the X-Men overall? Not yet.
Yeah, it is definitely a bit of a slow start. I would put it that way, which is not necessarily a bad thing if that's what you're looking for. But I think the initial story that is painted had me intrigued. It may potentially be that I've been at the location that the main story took place at, which was the pyramids in Mexico City, as I got to actually visit that last year a little bit. And had a great time. Actually, I'm sorry, it was this year. It was February. I have no idea what year it is anymore. Either way, it was a good trip, and it was a good time, and all that. So it may have swayed me a little bit. Jim, what you say you on Uncanny X-Men #1?
Well, first of all, I'm glad I wasn't the only one who didn't know who the warden was. Because again, I was about to ask you guys, okay, so who is this? Assuming this was a regular ongoing character in the X universe, and same thing like the assistant. I don't know who that guy is, but they're both obviously somebody associated with mutants, anti-mutants and whatnot. So it's kind of neat, the introduction on them, and again, what happened to the mansion? All these are questions that are running through my head that I'm like, okay, were these previous stories that I haven't read, because I haven't read a lot of stuff. I know we keep talking about, Xavier being gone, and so I'm like, that's laying on a good groundwork. And immediately in my head, that prisoner, first thought that popped in my head was, that's Xavier.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that popped in my head.
Welcome
But
home.
what?
Welcome home.
Yeah, exactly. But again,
it's a good thing to pop into your head, quite frankly, Jim. You are on the right track with that.
Oh, okay. See, and again, it's one of the things I loved about the story is that, we had a couple moments of cool fight sequences. We had a couple great team moments. We had a couple great character moments. Some of the stuff I've always loved about Gail Simone is just the dynamic that she can cover in a book. Mm-hmm. Sometimes she can throw in a funny moment without derailing the action. Sometimes she can throw in a sentimental moment without, throwing you off. Like, let's be honest, when they're in the hospital, we all knew what was going to happen, and it still was a gut punch when it happened. Mm-hmm. And I love, that's the thing where if you know the outcome that's coming and you know what's going to happen, and it still you get a reaction, that's good storytelling. And that was something I really enjoyed on it.
Definitely. Absolutely the case. Sean, your initial impressions.
One piece I want to shout out before I even go is Gail also did some great work on Domino. I really enjoyed her Domino miniseries. I thought it was something that, so her exposure to X-Men, as far as we've said, it's not taking the mainline book, but she's done some work with the characters. Dr. Ellis isn't new. Dr. Ellis is a character that's been in the books before, but she's risen to power at this point. And she's got a personal vendetta against them. Which is playing out here. So they do a good job in this of setting the stage of, we're bringing in this character that's got an agenda. The one thing I really liked about this was the intimacy. And I was a big fan of Krakoa that came before. I think what you don't want to do if you're following up Krakoa is try to do Krakoa. Because what you're going to end up doing is doing a watered down version of Krakoa that people are constantly going to be referring back to. This is not Krakoa. They're trying to do Krakoa, and they're not going to do it justice. It's very hard to follow up that run and try to do the same thing. I actually applauded the fact that out of the gate, they're doing something more personal, something a little more intimate. I love that about the X-Men. Growing up, my favorite Claremont stories were the ones where they get really personal. There's times in this where they're sitting around a fire together and they're having some really intimate moments. Rogue's dialogue in this really worked for me, with her being the narrator, because I felt like I was hanging out with Rogue. Mm-hmm. And those were pieces that really made me enjoy this. I also like, too, we're continuing this mystery of what's going on with Wolverine. There is a thing, we haven't spelled it out. There's something going on with him. They're trying to move this character forward, which I'm a big Wolverine fan. And if you want to keep hooking me into Wolverine, there's gotta be a progression with him, which is hard to do with everything you've done to this guy over the years. They've kind of done a lot. We've seen old man Wolverine. We've killed Wolverine. We brought Wolverine back. So now to be able to, at this point, have him addressing the fact that those things happened to him and he's in a different place, was something I thought out of the starting gate. I love when continuity is brought in and you feel like they're trying to take that forward with the character. Right. So the intimacy of this was something, it's definitely not your story where you're coming out of the starting gate and go, man, there's tons of action in this. There is, and it's an appropriate amount of action where they put him up against a giant dragon. But really, this is much more about the intimacy of the characters and getting to know where they're at, which is going to be different coming off of where we were at with the scale of the story we were getting with Krakoa. And so it's definitely different as far as off of that piece goes. But out of the gate, I really liked the personal connection with the characters. It's a piece that kind of took me back to what brought me to X-Men from the beginning.
Yeah, that's and I would agree with you, especially with the Wolverine stuff. That whenever you get behind the scenes of Wolverine, in one form or another, it's usually for the better. Him being more than just this, crazy guy with claws, is what I like to see. And it's the way that Claremont wrote him best. And it's the way plenty of other writers have written him best, where he has a heart in there. And he shows his age. You know, he shows the fact that he is over 200 years old at this point and has seen so many of his friends and allies and even villains come and go during that time. It really adds layers and depth to the character. And these initial scenes with Wolverine, you know, getting the gift of the alcohol from his you know, dying friend, really, I think, propelled the state of where Wolverine is forward in this particular issue, and will also probably do so for the run of this book. It's putting Wolverine in a very nostalgic state, while at the same time also wondering where his place in the world is going to be moving forward. And I highly appreciate that from a character like him. And the same could be said even for Rogue and Gambit, because, you know, they've been married for a little while now, and Rogue is trying to find her feet in the X-Men, whether or not she's actually suited for a lead role, whether she's suited to be the head of an X team. She herself doesn't even know that. Sure, she's done it before. Not for long stretches, but she's been the leader of the X-Men. I believe that was during Claremont's initial return back in the day, where I think it was him and Lionel Francis Yu on the artwork for that, and Rogue led that team. So it's not her first time, but she certainly seems to be in a more confident place than she was. And it may be the fact that her and Remy are in such a good place right now that's definitely assisting that. Speaking of Lionel Francis Yu, I do feel like Marquez is channeling Lionel Francis Yu in a lot of ways with this artwork at his best, and I am a big fan of what he's putting out on this. The renderings on the dragon in particular are extraordinary. But yeah, I really dug this book for the personal elements more than anything else. I think that executed that incredibly well.
Yeah, Wolverine's been through some stuff recently, like the whole Beast situation. One of his best friends went evil, and he had to go after him as part of X-Force. Then at the same time, his Wolverine book, a bunch of people died in it, not to mention Deken, or Ahiro, as I think they call him now. I don't know why they changed the name. Honestly, I don't know. But he got cut up really bad. Now he's a Helverine and not quite around. I don't know. I thought there was other people that died, but then he killed Sabretooth again for the third time.
Yeah.
And then his home got ripped away. He was in an unacknowledged throuple with Scott and Jean, you know, so, you know, he's going through a lot. Like, whole world turned upside down and again and again and again. But when did Rogue and Gambit get married? That I'm not following.
Rogue and Gambit got married back in the X-Men Gold days. It was
in the 90s.
No. This is the 2000s. This was
before Krakoa?
Basically, yeah, before Krakoa. They got married in the issue that Kitty and Colossus were initially going to be married in.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end of that issue, that marriage does not wind up actually happening, and a marriage still takes place, and it's the marriage of Gambit and Rogue. So
that must have happened after the Batman 25 or 50 fake out with Catwoman. People were like, "We wanted a marriage, darn you!"
Wasn't too far after that, from what I remember. So
I love that one too, because Kitty and Peter were supposed to get married, so they decide to back out of that.
Yeah,
Kitty doesn't, decides at the last minute to back out of that, and all of a sudden during that same wedding, hey. Wedding's all set up and ready to go. How about we get married here?
it was such a sitcom moment, like it's like straight out of like Grey's Anatomy, where well, you know, we're supposed to get married, but no, I pine for another, and then run off, and then two other characters who are in love are like, well, I mean, everything's all set up already, so might as well, and then that was that, and then they ran off and were Mr. and Mrs. X for a while in their own team book for a couple of months there in the X books. So yeah, they have been married for a little while now, but this is kind of like the first real time they've gotten to sink their teeth in, as it didn't really have much to do in Krakoa, from what I remember. They weren't front and center. So this now gives them the opportunity to be back front and center. Jim,
When did she get the ability to touch people? Because that's something that, again, I've never, never known her to be able to physically touch somebody.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask the same question, Jim. Great timing, because I didn't know if the kid, like, I don't remember. I know Rogue's powers, but I didn't know if she got this weird ability before and didn't remember it. But I didn't know if the kid like had a vision at the same time that he touched Rogue, or if he touched Rogue and then got the vision because Rogue's sapping his powers. And then if that's the case, why didn't Rogue have the vision? So any hints?
I know she's had more control over her power in the last couple of years, dating back even to like the Excalibur days, where that like fourth run of Excalibur that Claremont was on, when it was mostly Magneto and Professor Xavier in the ruins of Genosha to start with. Eventually, she wound up being a part of that, and I think even in X-Men Legacy, she had some stuff to do with her powers and gaining further control over that. So that has been a long time coming. And if memory serves, it has been established with the character since around then. I know she definitely had full control of her powers in the Uncanny Avengers run that she was a part of. So this isn't entirely new. I think Krakoa may have helped with that a little bit because, Krakoan mutants kind of had like swerves in their powers over time, but she can definitely touch people more now than she could. But I think she has to have focus. If she's not focused, then she could still potentially use her powers the wrong way, and zap somebody when she's not looking to. I don't believe that happened here with the kid, though. I think that's entirely separate. But let's talk about the kid, actually, because that was talk about like an emotional beat in a story. This was reminiscent almost of like that time that Spider-Man met up with that dying kid and, revealed his identity to him in an issue of Amazing years and years ago. That's kind of the moment that's brought forward here as the X-Men essentially make a wish to a dying mutant. And give him the wish of meeting the X-Men at least once in his life before he passes. So pretty emotional stuff here especially for a first issue.
Yeah, and it was, again, I don't think Rogue had anything to do with the kid. I think it was because even Wolvie is picking up with his senses, knowing the kid's about to crash. He was picking up that, so that because he told the doc, "Hey, get the family back here now." Yeah. His senses were picking that up even long before, while the kid was still like, "Hey, how you doing?" Everything's hunky dory with him. Now him having having his vision right as he has the massive stroke, I think the powers could have kicked it on and made things worse for him, but he was already starting to go before that.
Yeah.
I did think there was a partial two-way exchange between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that I don't think like Rogue didn't kill him or anything like that. I don't think it was that type of situation.
Yeah, she didn't get arrested. So that's what I was like, it must not be her powers if she's not being blamed immediately. Because at this point, I feel like everybody would know, don't touch Rogue the same way they're like, hey, don't grab Wolverine against his fist because you're going to get stabbed,
But I felt like her emotional reaction afterwards, and even just the way, if you watch the way that whole sequence plays out, when that hand touched, something happened there. So, I mean, there was definitely something that was going on between the two of them, but there's definitely her abilities are definitely, at least it feels like her abilities are much more under control.
Mm-hmm.
I know her and Gambit, one of his powers play into that somewhat too, because he's able to extend that aura of his.
Right.
And that was the thing that's been established in comics as well. But yeah, I don't feel like I didn't walk out of that scene feeling like Rogue is the culprit here.
Definitely not. Although part of me wonders, was the kid dying or was it the flare of the powers that led to the kid dying? Which did Wolverine smell? Did Wolverine smell imminent death, or did he smell the powers erupting from the kid? It's kind of 6 in one, a half dozen in the other in this situation. Either way, they're coming. You have to help them. One of them is the Endling, and then the kid crashes. Certainly is a what the hell is going on here moment for the book to come and for the moment itself. And then by the time the issue ends, we are introduced with these quite literally new mutants that are here. But are they mutants? Are they just powered beings? We don't know. And obviously future issues will give us a further insight on that one way or the other.
And one of them is the Endling, whichever that is.
Yes.
Because that's the dragon told them that. And then the kid also said, you've got to protect them. One of them is the Endling. Mm-hmm. So whatever who or whatever the Endling is, I don't know. So it's one of the things I also really liked on this, when they were going up against the dragon and the dragon's breaking the pyramid, Rogue was like, oh, we weren't supposed. One of the things, I wasn't supposed to let him break anything, So it's like Rogue was sent there by somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it was Scott, because I'm thinking Scott's still doing more of the the X-Men kind of manipulation, or just team, Rogue, it's like he's Alpha team, they're Bravo team kind of mindset, and so I see this kind of as a working with but not working with other X's.
Yeah. And this goes back to something that we mentioned last episode as well, that although the teams know of each other and the mutants know of each other right now, the teams are very spread apart and they're not necessarily all on the exact same page. Even as Scott is giving Rogue a call here, it wasn't a I have a mission for you because you're a member of the X-Men. It's I have a mission for you because you quite literally have been requested by this kid. And that's why it was happening. Not necessarily an X reason to be there. So yeah, that's the case. I do appreciate the back and forth between Nightcrawler and Rogue. We've been seeing them much more as siblings in the past couple of years, and I appreciate that going even further here.
Do we need a quick explainer for that to Jim, or did we do that? I think we did that last episode.
I think we may have. But
I'm thinking I did an overview of the Rise and Fall, that Powers of X.
Got it.
And I did it on there, and it was like crazy.
So Nightcrawler is Mystique's kid, and Rogue was raised by Mystique. So essentially,
wrong. No. So okay, here we go.
What? What?
All right, so
we need like a reel for this. Like when Brent says one of these, there's got to be like something in there. Yes.
Brent explains.
Yes.
In the most dumbest way possible. Okay, so we've always thought Nightcrawler is Mystique's son because she's blue, he's blue.
Right.
And it was recently revealed in, I think it was a short series called X-Men Blue at the end of the Krakoa era, that how Mystique and Destiny are a thing. There are a couple. Mystique turned shapeshifted into a man who, I think, posing as Azazel, impregnated Destiny in her current immortal form, however that works with her, and then she gave birth to Nightcrawler, and then Mystique took him and kind of raised him as his own because there was some weirdness with Destiny not wanting to know the destiny of her son, something like that. And then so it's always just been assumed that Mystique was Nightcrawler's mom when she's actually his kind of dad.
Yeah.
And then since they raised Rogue, that makes them, I guess, step siblings, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Makes perfect sense.
Oh, absolutely. Comics, baby.
Absolute sense.
Well, this is something that Chris Claremont wanted to do back in the day. This is something he wanted to do back in the 70s.
Yes.
And at the time, Marvel was like, no, seriously, no. And
lesbians and trans people? What?
Yeah, and now times have very much changed, and you can do stories like that in comics, and you can have representation like that in comics because it's no longer the taboo that it once was amongst comic readers and amongst individuals for the most part. So that's something that you could definitely do in comics now that you weren't able to do back then. Claremont blessing as well, so that also helps.
The weird thing I think I was explaining, why I was explaining it in that other overview video I did on my channel, was because like at the end of that trade paperback, that's the end of the Krakoa era collection of those two series. They include X-Men 35, that massive issue, and Claremont does a story of Rogue Mystique, Destiny, and Nightcrawler as like a family picnic at the end of that single issue.
Yes.
They put it in the trade without explaining any context of like why this is here. And I don't know if that other miniseries has been collected at all. I was like, why is this here rather than in this, I don't know, maybe soon to be other collection is wild.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's also a great story in X-Men. Was it 700 that just happened? The one that we talked about on the Krakoa episode. It was,
that's the I think I called it 35. It might have been 35 in that one, but it's that
X-Men 35/700. As that Chris Claremont story with them having the picnic, exactly what you're talking about there, and it very much goes into their relationship and backstory and whatnot, and has some great artwork by LaRocca as well in that particular story. But I'll also bring up that this has been a long time coming, and whether parental or not, they are definitely siblings, Nightcrawler and Rogue, and it's great to finally just have that be out in the open, established, and have them have that relationship in the comics after all these years. It's very nice to see. Yep. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is also kind of how confusing the setup for this is. There have been multiple stories already told with this prison. There was a Free Comic Book Day story that was told with Dr. Ellis inside of the prison, and there was also even a backup in that X-Men 700 that takes place there, where you even see who the prisoner is. You 100% see that it's Xavier.
I thought he escaped during that, or that was.
He tries to escape, and then they basically get him back into his cell. Was
that here? Was that established as? See, I didn't, and I'm not. This isn't me disputing. I guess I'm asking the question. Was that here, or were they moving him from there to here?
I thought they were already in the mansion. To be honest with you,
it was in like New York City. There was city. It looked like they're going to the mansion because it had the mansion trees and all that. I know. I think I remember seeing that, but.
And there was definitely in the Free Comic Book Day issue, they're already in the mansion. That was a little bit less than this though, so like I can accept this setup. Stories have been told with this already, and it's kind of hard to find out exactly what's happening first because of that muddiness a little bit, but still intriguing about what's happening with Ellis here, and what will wind up happening with Xavier moving forward. As clearly he's not just going to be playing nice inside of the prison. Like if they're setting her up there's going to be more, definitely.
I took this as the start of the prison though. Yeah, because in the beginning where it's it says formerly Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, and it says before. I think this is meant to be the establishment of that. I get what you're saying too. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm like trying to process myself, like kind of where all this falls. So to me, this read like this is Dr. Ellis arriving there for the first time, because this really I actually really liked how this established her as a bad in this.
Oh yeah,
because what she goes in there and does is she's violating everything, and she's intentionally violating it. This is their home. She knows this is their home. And she's going in there and basically sell off catalog and sell off everything that you can, destroy anything you can't. Yeah. Leave no piece of wood, leave no piece of identity still intact. Anything that would basically equate to this at one point in time being a home, a mansion, a sanctuary, anything you want to call it, she is violating here purposefully. Yep. That is vindictive and downright evil in a twisted sense. And then if we are correct in our assumption on who this person is, and that is in fact Xavier, basically walks and says, "Welcome home. We're going to be doing some remodeling," with all of us knowing what that remodeling is. This is a horrid. I mean, I don't know, man. Somebody coming to give and start tearing apart my home and breaking all my stuff. You look behind me, you see, like, I don't know, you touch any of my stuff over there, we're having fights. we all got our stuff. Stay away from my stuff.
Still has all of her stuff in it. You know, we see that clearly this is a lived-in situation here. It's not like they had the opportunity to go and pack stuff up. Because I guess a lot of stuff just stayed there while everybody else was over in Krakoa. So that's unfortunately the state of the mansion as we leave it here. It's just going to become a prison in one form or another. So we'll see how that winds up turning out. What do you guys think about Kitty in this? As obviously we're going to see more of her in another book that we'll be talking about shortly, but clearly well established here that, as we said, the X-Men are not exactly all on speaking terms right now. Kitty is not a happy person and does not want anything to do with this potential X team that Rogue is putting together.
One of the things. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the things that, we'll talk more about in the next book, because Kitty is a character I've got so many questions on, guys, just to let you know, and especially when we get into her book, that's going to be, there's a lot of stuff. I was like, there's a lot of anger there. I wonder what happened there.
No, definitely. Yeah. And it's all going to make sense as that book unfolds, especially with Emma being involved, because Emma and Kitty are very much frenemies. They used to just be straight up enemies back in the day, because once upon a time Kitty had a lot of fights with the Hellions and with Emma and the Hellfire Club and stuff like that, whether she was with the X-Men or whether she was somewhere else. So they were very much not on good terms for many years, and have gotten closer to good terms since then, but they still don't like each other very much. and that's going to come to a head definitely at some point. Go ahead.
I appreciated with Kitty and really this whole situation that there is no ignoring what happened in Krakoa. They had almost achieved paradise. They had almost achieved Xavier's dream. Rogue talks about this around the fire with some passion. And with how big Krakoa was, to try and pretend that didn't happen here would be a huge mistake. You're going to alienate a whole group of fans by doing it.
Yep.
Instead of doing that, they're embracing that, and it's actually affecting them all in very different, very personal ways. Now you're being brought back on Earth with all of that being destroyed, and also just a horrible things happening to, many of the mutants along the way in this process. So now you're going to come back and, hey, guess what? Now we can just go back to being X-Men like we were before. And nobody's really able to do that in this. Scott's team's doing their own thing over there. This team that's forming, and I like the fact that I can put quotes around that right now, is they're still trying to feel out, like, are we X-Men? What does that mean to us to be X-Men? And around that campfire, there was a sense of, like, genuine uncertainty that to me should be reminiscent of how big Krakoa was. I think if you jumped after this and said, that happened, let's be a superhero team again and go right back at it like we did beforehand, because our goals are going to be the same. We're going to do this peaceful coexistence between humanity and mutant, just like we did before. Ignoring that would be the disservice to fans. I liked the fact that around the campfire, I felt like, wow, this has there's some genuine that's why I thought the personal nature of this one really worked for me, because it was reacting to how big that event was.
Right.
The end Krakoa and the ending of Krakoa should have a major impact on all of this.
Sure. And Rogue's exact words in that campfire, I keep thinking we almost had everything. We almost had Xavier's dream. Now it's just an emptiness. Do we even try to carry on? And that's a very important question that they themselves are going to have to wind up asking as this team forms, and what comes next after coming so close to that peace and purpose that they've been fighting for so long to achieve with Krakoa. So definitely the case. What did we think about this whole Rosa scene earlier on in the book, by the way? The very creepy I wouldn't quite say tentacles. They're almost like tree branch hands coming at this mutant in the middle of the forest with "Come to mommy" as the words around it. It's creepy times. It's definitely creepy times.
Oh, definitely, dude. Again, it was one of those things where just that you're flipping through pages and you get the mutant running and then "Come to mommy." I'm like, oh, okay, we got our big bad here. Okay, this is going to be neat.
And is this a new big bad, or is this a pre-existing big bad? Like, this could easily be the Shadow King with
They're all new to me, so that's kind of cool.
That's very, very true. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's someone new. Gail likes working with old and then creating new a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if, not only are these new characters we're getting at the end here, but it may also potentially be a brand new villain to go along with it to creep everybody out. So,
and one of the things I just want to state, I'm very happy that these characters seem comfortable to me, and they're seeming comfortable to you guys. Because I'm basing mine back on a long time experience with them. And with the exception of, again, as I said, I didn't know Rogue, could touch people, and I didn't know why Kitty was so angry.
Yeah.
Those are, but the, Wolvie, with, Remy, with Rogue, all of them, Kurt even, I felt comfortable reading them. Like these are the same X-Men that I know. And I thought that was one of the neat things about this, that I'm coming back into this and I'm not like, what's going on here?
It did also all feel very much in character, because sometimes you get a new writer on a book and something feels off. Like something feels off character wise. I think that Gail immediately captured the voice of at least, Gambit, Rogue, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler here to start. Like they very much felt like they did, in Claremontian times and beyond. Like, these are the characters that I know. They're just in a new spot. And that's what has me interested in what's to come here. Again, with a smaller team, but we also have some other characters that are supposed to be coming in as time goes on in here, which is teased a little bit on the bonus page, where if you scan the QR code, you get that. And we all talked about how much we absolutely loved and adored that last episode. Well, it's still here. And
who is this woman that's being attacked here? I don't recognize that.
It looks like Monet. I don't know whether or not it is Monet, but it definitely looks like her and has a costume similar to her. Sean, agree, disagree on that one?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was Monet. I did look back at the one of them that's being, obviously, that's doing the attacking is one of the ones coming from the woods.
Right.
Well, all three of those characters, like the guy.
Yeah,
the ninja mask, he's there. The girl with the multicolored suit, she's there, and then the dude with almost looks like a no face above on the top. He's also on the other opposite page.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking
if they
Monet
actually printed this in the freaking book.
I wasn't thinking Monet until you just said it, Ian. But so admit it. But I don't disagree at all. That would be an excellent choice and character I wouldn't mind seeing.
Absolutely, and the man in ninja mask, who totally doesn't look like he's Grifter from the Wildcats, certainly is going to wind up playing a part in this in one way or the other, as are the Thundercats on the bottom of the page here. So that's also something that we should be looking forward to. Ho!
Ninja mask is the other kid in the woods, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's got the same circle on his jacket here. You just can't see it well.
Yeah. And who's that crying? The goodbye, Charles, I love you at the bottom of this preview bonus page here. That's another good question for us, because we don't really get to see anything other than gold hair and red boots to go along with.
Is that the other girl?
It might be.
The other girl's blonde haired, and
I don't know that she's the narrator.
I think it's the girl that's narrating issue 2.
Okay.
If you read that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. All right. Well, yeah. Either way, this is the page that I felt was the most like similar to the Jeff Johns coming next page that he put into his DC books for many years. Like coming soon on Uncanny X-Men. Like that was what was on display in here. The rivalry, potential rivalry between Cyclops and Rogue and these new kids and what's going to be happening with them. Like, that's what's on display here for a coming soon factor. So in a way, this is also kind of the most skippable of the bonus pages. And for the other X-Men title book that we're doing, it doesn't even have one of the QR codes. It just has every single page in it. So this is the end of that, probably in one form or another for us, outside of the Phoenix one that we're going to be talking about next. But overall, what are our final thoughts on this? Where do we put it, and where do we rank it? Brent, what do you got?
I'd give this a 4 out of 5. I like this one the most out of these three. It's way more fun to read than I thought. Even if it's just a pitch for how I can write an X-Men book by Gail Simone and Dave Marquez, it was very good. It's very enjoyable. They hit everything that I read was fun, was great, was enjoyable, and I immediately wanted more story. So that's a sign of a good first issue.
Sounds good. Jim?
Well, as I said, comfort with it, looking forward to the future, all those kind of this, this for me was just I'm coming home to the X-Men. This is Uncanny X-Men for me. It had everything that I loved about all the long time reading I've done. And of course it's Gale, so I know it's going to be good coming down the line, so I'm throwing out a 5.
Excellent. Sean?
Yeah, this one was for me. I walked in with very high expectations, which sometimes is a hard thing when you walk in expecting it to be top tier, and then, sometimes it won't always achieve all those goals. Here's where it exceeded that for me. I knew I was going to love Gail's writing. She speaks to me. I really enjoy her work. Glad to just see consistency if she continues to raise the bar on what my expectations are with that. But the art team on this one, I want to compliment in particular. First, the pencil work of David Marquez, obviously top notch.
Oh yeah.
But Matthew Wilson's color work, color work to me sometimes, and it's no insult to the colorists, there should be a marriage between the two. And if you take a look at like the campfire scene, just for an example, take a look at the tones in that. It's gorgeous. I mean, there were pages in there that really popped with the color work. And it's not something I always say. And I know, believe me, so many comics I've enjoyed where the color work has just been spectacular and it's always done what it's supposed to do. In this book in particular, it really stood out for me. This is a team that is just really hitting on full thrusters. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. It's right out of the gate. I just really enjoyed it. And what a first issue should do is it sets the stage for potential. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like this book as a flagship book has a lot of potential. I hope it continues to deliver on that potential, but right out of the gate, this made me very happy. And I did, with our discussion on smells, with how much we focused on it, I wish there was a scratch and sniff version. I'd like the deluxe scratch and sniff version, foil cover, the whole bit, just to see what that was like. It would answer some of our questions.
I wouldn't put it past Marvel to put one out at some point. They've done quite literally everything else with their lenticular covers and whatnot over the years. So I think we could definitely get a scratch and sniff. In particular, a Wolverine scratch and sniff book would work very well, or a Deadpool book so you could smell the chimichangas. But I agree with that. I'd give this one about a 4.5 out of 5. It came really close to being a 5 out of 5 for me. It sets up the characters, it sets up the relationships really well. I'm liking Louisiana as a setting for these guys. Is obviously it's going to be home turf for Gambit, and the other characters get to settle in as well. And I'm intrigued with these new characters coming in and potentially a new villain as well to threaten the X-Men. Sometimes it can take a little while for a writer that has not written a book like this to really get the feel of a team book. And Gale is a is a seasoned veteran when it comes to team books. You know, Secret Six is one of my favorite team books of all time, and I think she hit the ground running with this one. So I'm very, very much looking forward to reading more of this. I will probably wait for Unlimited, so I have a little while longer to wait than if I were to just go out and buy it, because these books are all coming in at $4 or more at this point, which is a heavy penny. And if I'm going to pay the $100 a year for Unlimited, I'm going to wait for Unlimited. So that's probably where I'm going to be heading on that one. But can't wait to read issue 2 when it's available. Definitely.
Gail, I have a pitch if you're listening. Arc 2, X-Men on a bus tour.
Ooh.
All 50 states.
Oh, God.
We've done New York. We've done Australia. We're in Alaska. We're in Louisiana. It's just circle the country, man.
What is this? Superman walking across the country here? Like, come on.
It was way more better with a team.
Yeah, I know.
That problem, JMS did it solo. That was Superman's problem. Should have taken Jimmy with him. We could have had some banter.
Oh my God, that's and by the way, JMS, that was not my favorite era of Superman. Just gotta say.
Even he didn't like it so much that he left and let Chris Roberson finish it. Remember that?
That is true. That is very, very true. Let's rise like a phoenix for our second book here. As Stephanie Phillips steps in on the writing for this one, and Alessandro Miracolo on the art chores. As one of the reasons that I picked this book over Wolverine is that this is the first ever solo book for Jean Grey that's been something other than a miniseries. And same can be said, if Storm had come out, that would have been my pick. It's just Storm doesn't come out until October 2nd. I will definitely discuss it on the show when it does come out. But this is new material here, and it spreads the X-Men even further across, because usually Jean is where Scott is. And this is very much setting up the space area for the X-Men. As one of my favorite things for the X-Men to be is in space. And that's what Jean is doing here. This is a newly established Jean Grey that is fully integrated with the Phoenix, with, as of now, no hint of dark in the process. This is also not a clone of Jean Grey with the Phoenix. This is Jean Grey as the Phoenix. And she's dealing with these powers, and she's learning about herself and growing. And there's a full integration here for probably the first time. And I really look forward to seeing where they're going to take these cosmic adventures moving forward, as we already have, Scott's daddy and the in the mix in one form or another, and that makes me very, very happy. But we'll start off with Sean this time around for initial impressions on Phoenix in space.
So spinning off X-Men characters solo is a hard thing to do. I mean, we're used to miniseries and things like that, and usually they're meant to be side stories, and I've always enjoyed them. But the main events always occur in the main titles. So spinning a character out into a solo series, the first question's got to be, what makes this a series? Mm-hmm. And I think with Phoenix, what I'm really enjoying with this one out of the gate is everything you said before about the integration and all that. Also, what you've got is history, reputation, and responsibility.
Yeah.
She's got to deal with the fact that there's nothing about any of this that explains away the past. She's got to deal with the past. Yep. And I like that all of that continuity. You mentioned Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix still happened.
Oh, yeah.
There's a part of that still, that still sits on her shoulders. And I like that that's something that doesn't go away with this. And it's something that's going to travel with her now because of who she is. It's her name. It's her reputation. And it's those are pieces that are factored in this. I liked when she and Scott are having interactions in this, that you're getting that sense of long history. And these are two people that love each other, but she's got a journey that she has to go on right now with all the change that you're mentioning. And that gets me intrigued to read this series, which is, I think, a hard thing to do when you're used to the X-Men concept being a team book type of thing. I said it earlier with the fact that he was saying, I kind of look at Wolverine as a separate thing. Yeah. can you look at Phoenix as a separate thing? And I think this has done a really good job of giving it itself out of the starting gate an identity that makes it worth going on that journey of it being a separate thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll step in and say that I agree with you here. I think that for a first issue, this had some of the most action out of any of the first issues that we gotten. It had some of the most storytelling and structure that we've gotten. As you said, the mind meld between Jean and Scott being on display, that even when they're apart, they're still together. I like their introducing Nova into the mix here. It's been a while since we've seen Richard Rider at all in Marvel Comics, and now he's running around again in the Nova suit and calling on Jean Grey for help, because she is a beacon of help now, even though there are many people out there that it's on display in this book as well, still see the Phoenix for its dark past. It seems to be a bright future for now. And then, also adding in, Corsair and the Starjammers at the end of this, essentially her father-in-law and his band of merry men, included in the mix here was a great way to go. And I look forward to where this is going to go next for the Starjammers, as I'm a huge fan of them. And then throwing in the Thor aspects of this, having one of the dark gods escaping captivity and winding up on a planet, and making his will known immediately in the fashion of death. Is really heavy stuff here. So you're adding in like Simonson era stuff with some Claremont stuff, with some more Krakoa action, and really just making it all blend together into a nice spacefaring X adventure here. And I really dug it for what it was. Brent, let me know what you think.
I thought it was okay. I don't have much like history with the Phoenix. I don't love nor hate the concept. I feel like for a long time they've kind of tried to figure out what to do with it. This seems like another thing here, because it's been good, it's been bad. Jean Grey's been good and been bad with the Phoenix. The Phoenix has been in other people. One of my favorite crossovers was Avengers vs. X-Men. You had Phoenixes all over the place. So I don't know. I kind of like that idea more than just like one in Jean per se, but I'm not married to the concept of X in general. Yeah, it had a lot of new characters that I did not know, so I could take them or leave them. I guess that's where my not disdain, but mediocrity feeling is coming from. Like, it's okay. I like the art. I like the, nothing against the writing. Yeah. I like the Black Order. I'm interested to see more of them, and I did see more of them. I will say, like, issue number 1 didn't do anything for me, but I did pick up issue number 2 when I was going hunting for all these single issues, and I liked issue 2 way more than I did issue 1. So please don't take my meh of issue 1 as a bad review. Issue number 2 I think was way better than 1, but I think because 1 is so much setup, and that you get to like. Not spoilers for 2, but there's so much more fun interaction with Corsair than there is dialogue in here to make you feel for Jean. That I don't know. This just was like meh. It's more of the same.
All right. Fair enough. Jim, I mean, you're definitely familiar with the Phoenix. We know that much.
Yes.
But not a lot of the in between. And what say you on this Phoenix?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I dig this. This was, again, very comfortable going into this. I know who Jean Grey is. I know who Phoenix is. I know all that. I'm like, yes. And I agree. I like the fact that she's in outer space, not on Earth. This is where she needs to be. This is where she needs to tell her story. And it needs to be, a little bit different than all the other X books. And it needs to have a different feel to it, and a different groove to it. And it does. And I like the fact that the little girl, who's watches her father get killed, is our narrator throughout this. Mm-hmm. I like the usage of that little kid. It's, again, I don't know, I intentionally didn't read issue 2 yet. I wanted to wait until after our conversation to jump on issue 2, but this was one that I'm like, I have to read issue 2 just because I want to see where this plays out. I want to see what happens with that little kid, what happens with Jean. When does Jean and her actually meet? Because she's talking as if, they've already met.
Right.
So she's telling the story. So I want to see when Jean is on that planet, how is Jean interacting with that kid? That's kind of stuff that's got me, interested. And on top of it, I thought this was really cool looking artwork. I like I'm going to also kudos on the color team, because this really, the fiery Phoenix pop, and you needed to have that kind of pop to it. So this was, for me, was an enjoyable read. And again, I didn't know we were initially covering this when I was first picking up the books. I thought we were doing X-Force. So, like, oh, I got to read Phoenix. Oh, okay. Ooh, I'm glad I did, because I probably would have skipped over this.
Mm-hmm.
I would have focused on the other X books. I would have focused on Wolverine as the solo issue, not, Phoenix. But now I'm definitely reading issue 2 and seeing where that goes.
Mm-hmm. You going to say something there, Sean?
She did meet Phoenix, right? I mean, or at least has the history with Phoenix, because wasn't she talking about like her father's stories and like that destruction wasn't she there? Am I missing that point?
Well, she's there for the destruction, yeah. You mean the earlier scenes in the book?
Yeah.
Yes,
because she's narrating through that, like I mean, just. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the point. That's the pivotal point that like starts her. That's where we get the reveal of why she has this hatred,
right,
of her.
Yeah. That's certainly the case, and this is modern day though. This isn't that far. For me though, I'm wondering whether or not the narration is taking place, very far in the future, like when she's an adult telling the story to kids, or whether or not this is the kid telling the story. And maybe that'll become a little bit clearer on as the story gets told. But she definitely had interaction with the Phoenix at one point, not very great. But at the same time, the Phoenix is there to save, not to hurt. At least it looks like from these early pages. So it's hard to say. It really is. But
I want to know more.
Yeah, I want to know more too. I definitely want to know more. And one other thing that needs to be brought up, especially with this, is the redesign of the costume. Now, with Phoenix being as well known of a character as she is, especially that particular costume, it takes a lot to redesign it. And I've seen some positives, I've seen some negatives online. I think this does a very good job of combining Jean's original look with the Phoenix costume, and blending both sides of herself together into one look that's cohesive with the narrative being told in this story of her essentially being a reborn Phoenix. I think makes a lot of sense in this book. And I dig it for the most part. What are you?
I agree. I'll tell you, I'm echoing right along with you. There's a couple where you have that more traditional Jean Grey costume merged with the Phoenix, and it's a really cool looking. And again, I still got to say, I love the a connection born from fire and ash. That is where our story begins, with fire, ash, and that image of Jean on there with the fiery Phoenix behind her. It's just like there's some brilliant artwork going on along with the story being told. I dig this.
Yep.
Not a fan of this costume. Doesn't make sense to me.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I'm fine with the smaller Phoenix symbol. Just the weirdness of like the black on the yellow. And then, like, in the last page and in the cover, it's like the black is definitely like more of like, Asbat's shield like raises up. I'm gonna draw that comparison. Yes. And like on the last page, it's there's like a distinct separation between the yellow on her as being part of her shoulder shirt, and then the black being like an armor piece. And all this is made by her thoughts. Like, she manifests this costume. Mm-hmm. So like, if you're gonna manifest a costume, why is it so complicated? I don't know.
because she really likes the 90s. I don't know. That's what I think of when I think of complicated costumes. But I don't know.
The boots are a little weird. They're not really boots per se. Like there's no rhyme or reason for her to have the black designs other than to make it different from the last green Jean Phoenix costume. I don't know.
Well, the black to me just again harkens back to her original Marvel Girl costume more than anything else. And kind of trying to blend the symmetry between them. But Sean, what did you think about the new costume?
I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinion as far as these pieces, but for me, I got what you did, Ian. I thought it was going to be a merger of classic Marvel Girl with Phoenix. I think it's Jean kind of having a costume that represents all of her history versus just the Phoenix piece where, when she emerged as Phoenix back in the day, that was a primal experience. This is very different where it's much more grounded. Jean now has as you mentioned, it's fully merged. So we're seeing a true representation of Jean here. I liked it for the most part because I always liked the Green Phoenix costume, but I liked that we're not throwing Marvel Girl out the window with this. And I felt that that's what they were going for. And it was, for me, it was successful. But I think that it's true. I think a lot of this has to do with, and I think, what did you read? And it's nothing wrong if you haven't, if your experience is one of, you've had less experience with it, then you're going to approach this with that eye. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think you're going to have a wide variety of opinions on this based on what your reading experience was and what your passion was for that reading experience as well.
Yeah.
I read all this stuff. So seeing the merger of it, I found it was cool, but that's tapping into the kid in me. And so it was successful in that end.
And I think when
if the black is there, if the black is there, like you're showing this image here where she's like all fiery and stuff to give her some differentiation when she makes that form, then we're just not being consistent because there should be black stuff on her legs. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair, and maybe that'll be a tweak that they wind up making moving forward. But I do definitely appreciate the accentuation that when she's flared, you have a little bit of that black to break it up, and she still has the Phoenix emblem and whatnot when she's all fired. So that I dig, but I do agree that there could be a little bit further differentiation than what's there. So fair enough. I also am very much looking forward to reading future issues of this. It hooked me in, and it might just be that, again, some of my favorite X books are the ones that take place in space. Whether it's stuff with Lilandra and the Shi'ar, whether it's stuff with the Kree, whether it be anywhere in between, those have been some of my favorite eras of the X-Men, and it's why it makes so much sense to have at least one of the books take place in space. And this time around, it's not a team book. It's the character that makes the most sense to be in space. And that, of course, is Jean Grey, the spacefaring Phoenix. So smart. Question is, how many issues is this going to last? There have been many quote unquote ongoing books with characters that hadn't had ongoing stories before that have only lasted about 12 issues at Marvel. And it'll be very interesting to see how long the Phoenix book does actually last on its own, because we've got Storm. Those are the two big ongoings that are launching off of this. Dazzler is a mini series that's been established. So I think of the two, I potentially see Storm as having more legs to be a further ongoing, just because of how popular a character Storm has become. But if they tell a good enough story here, maybe we'll get more than 12 issues. So that's remains to be seen one way or the other. Definitely.
I'm hoping Storm goes with. Is just straight up Mars stuff again, because that I feel like was a thread left hanging from the downfall of Krakoa was Arakko and Mars and all, her being Queen of Mars and all that.
That's a good point. Go ahead, Sean.
Two other quick comments. Just one real quick. I don't want to ignore the fact that you mentioned the Asgardian piece off of this. I love the history of the X-Men and Asgard.
Oh yeah,
so I was glad to see that brought into this piece because it was just something that made me happy growing up when those stories were always so classic. It's funny, and Brent, you may agree or disagree. I actually want your thoughts on this. So one of the things I noticed about the color work with regards to that black, it seems like it was gradually fading away the more she was tapping into the power. So like the more exertion, the more we'd see the Phoenix Force energy grow, you would start to see it vanish. I don't know if that's a deliberate choice. I like it. If it is not, then I'm a little bit more where you're at on that piece. If you take a look at the page where we see like the black initially, and then you take a look at the next page, she's exerting more power there, and you start to see the black fade even more as the energy envelopes her. And then as she kind of zaps out of the energy, all of her color starts to return back to the costume. If that's a choice to show the level of exertion of power, I like the use of color work to do that, just because it's a neat way to show that she's going mega at this point in time, which I think that's an intriguing choice. But if they're not doing that, then
well, there's points on that page Ian had up earlier where oh gosh, like even I don't know if the black was supposed to be there or not, because her headband disappeared. And I was kind of thinking the same thing you were. Like, is it a choice? And then there's another page where she's talking to Scott, and she's got her hands like this. And it's almost like, I don't know if this is a weird like cleavage situation or whatever, but it looks almost like it makes the yellow part underneath her black shoulder piece look raised as opposed to underneath. So that's just where I'm like looking at this costume, like this is confusing, like, just for me.
Yeah, and this may also just be something as simple as this is the first issue this is being used, and they haven't quite 100% figured out the language of the costume 100% yet. And I think that maybe as time goes on, it'll hopefully sort itself out a little bit. And if it doesn't, then it's proof that it might not be the best costume, and they may want to switch it up because Miracolo's a great artist, and that's on display here. We just need consistency. And I think that hopefully over time, once it's 100% figured out, we will get that consistency in the costume. But
you will be happy to know that paging through issue number 2, I would have more nitpicks.
Okay, good.
It's not consistent, not yet.
Well, maybe it is actually as simple as what Sean was saying earlier, that considering that this costume is being created by her and her mind, that maybe that's why it's inconsistent. Maybe that's my no prize right there, is like whatever she wants it to look like, it is.
By the end of issue 6, it's going to be like when they brought back Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, and he had that weird hood costume, and they're like, screw it, we're just going back to the classic 90s hoodie by the end of issue 6.
And Ian's going to have a lot of no prizes.
Oh yeah. I always do one way or the other. So it's just
I love you handing out no prizes.
there are a lot of people in my life that deserve no prizes, and really it just depends on what they bring up and what they don't, whether or not they get no prize. So enough said. By the way, this character of Pericus, I don't know if you guys realize this, but he was first created by Jurgens for the Heroes Return era of Thor. This is the 1998 Thor Volume 2, Issue 1 by Jurgens and Romita Jr. And he first appeared in voice only in that, and then appeared in full as a character in issue 4. So he was one of the main villains of that initial arc when Thor returned after Heroes Were Born.
I read the first 25 issues of that run on Comixology Unlimited, and I do not remember that guy at all. That's all I have to say.
I'm impressed that you're bringing it up because very similar to Brent's experience, I read it. Yeah. I didn't remember that. I'm like, until now, and when you said it now, I'm like sitting there like, oh, that's cool. I'm like,
It's a cool little wiki that wiki bit that I put up there, because I knew I recognized the character from somewhere, and I just wanted to find out exactly from where, because he's been used in a couple of other places before, but that's where his initial appearance was. And this is also, by the way, another book that had the QR code, so I'm going to bring up that page here for anybody who didn't scan it.
All 3 of these had the QR code.
Yeah.
This I think this goes back to Ian, or was it Ian or Sean saying that the narration was from the end, because that's got to be the little girl we meet that gets recruited by Pericles, right? Yeah. So the narration, I think, goes back to where she's in that form, who, whenever that is,
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is the page that actually makes me the angriest, quite frankly. This is a page that should have just straight up been a part of the book, rather than split it off into a QR code that people are either going to read or not read. Like, this would have been an excellent last page reveal, which technically it is, but only if you open it up on an iPad. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great last page. Like the Black Order last page that they have is pretty great also, but it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like that would have been
I'm
a better
digging
last
it.
page, and just put the Black Order as the preview, I guess.
I agree. Yeah, I'm digging it too. Jim. I think that this just got me even more hyped for what's to come. And it just, I hope that, like we talked about on the last episode, when they release these all in trade, that they just include these pages where they're supposed to be included as the last page of each book, rather than not including them, because it's, especially when it makes sense story-wise like this, it should be there. It really should.
You didn't hear what they're going to do for the trade?
No.
Everything's QR code.
Damn it.
For consistency, it's all QR code, every page.
I would absolutely love that if Marvel had the balls to just release a QR code book and just have
Wait, 200 pages of QR codes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hardcover.
Yep.
Hardcover with 2 different variant covers that are both QR codes.
and then the last page has bonus content that you have to type in a website for.
That's right.
Yep. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Just give them enough time, and they'll make it so. They'll make it so. And yeah, the Starjammer stuff to come, I'm looking forward to, and I'm definitely gonna read the next couple of issues of this to see what I think about it. So absolutely, has me jazzed for this. Jim, are you jazzed? What's your rating?
Oh, I'm jazzed, man. Horseman all the way. And it's funny, I recognized the guy, but I didn't know who he was really. So it's kind of, now hearing you talk, I'm like, oh, okay, now I want to see more. All right. So adding on extra stuff, and then that QR code page, that really has gotten me interested now. So, this is a definite, for not being initially thinking, oh, I'm going to be reading this, to now I have to have issue 2.
Cool. What'd you say the rating was?
Oh, Horseman.
Oh, there you go. Nice. Woo. I agree with said statement. I think this is a 4 out of 5 for me. It gave me what I wanted for a first issue. It got me inside the head of Jean. It got me inside the head of Nova and some of the other characters involved with this. I'm intrigued by the not quite little girl anymore, who's clearly serving the whim of Pericus, and just how much she's going to wind up being a foil for Jean in upcoming issues. I want more Starjammers action. So yeah, this has me hooked. 4 out of 5, definitely for me. Sean?
So for me, my first exposure to X-Men was Uncanny X-Men 160, May 1982. And then the stuff beforehand became my quest. I fell in love with the series. So the Dark Phoenix saga and the Phoenix saga in general, it was my quest to try and get all of those issues. The Jean Grey as a character, especially Phoenix, as a character that became very, very important to me. It's so associated with that quest, finally getting to read that story and loving it. I really enjoyed this one. And it's hard to do a spin-off series, I think, of the X books for all the reasons that I think kind of we set it off this one. This, for a first issue, is a 4 out of 5 for me. And I got to admit, there's extra credit because of the love for the character. So I'll admit that piece. But as far as an introductory issue for a series, I'm hoping that it has legs to it. I'm hoping that this is something where, like you said, Ian, I'd like to see this be something where the story's so good it goes beyond 12, because I'm feeling it's going, that's kind of where these books go. And I'm hoping that it's always great if a story is like all of a sudden buzzworthy and we get those underground books where like it wasn't supposed to do this, but look what happened. So I wouldn't mind this being one of those that does.
Yeah, it certainly very well could. You could also have stories that take place back on Earth if you want to change things up a little bit, and then go back into space. Like you have tons of options with this book, one way or the other. Absolutely. And Brent, and your inconsistencies with the costume and all, what do you give it?
I give it a 3.
Okay.
Again, issue number 2, I loved a lot more than this one. So this one's 3. 2 is way better.
Fair enough. All right. The third and final book that we're going to be talking about today is an adjective the X-Men have yet to have. And I feel like they've had every other one at this point. They've been amazing. They've been extraordinary. They've been extreme with an X. They've been uncanny. They've never been exceptional, and now apparently they are with this issue. Eve L. Ewing, the writer, Carmen Carnero, the artist, Nolan Woodard on the color art for this one, and letters by Joe Sabino. This is Exceptional X-Men number 1. And this time around, I'm gonna start off with Sean to get initial impressions on this book.
So this one was one where, first of all, I'm glad in its placement. It needed to be the last one out of the batch.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being, I think if this had been earlier on, I'd be worried about this line. Just because it's very different than the other ones. I think at this point, you have to have established for you kind of where the X-Men are at in general in order to appreciate this book. I think seeing where Kitty was in Uncanny X-Men sets the stage for this book in a way that you kind of need before, at least this is for me, by the way, over it. I enjoyed it, but I feel like it required like kind of a prequel, of kind of feeling where everybody else is at in order to appreciate it. I'm a big fan of Kitty Pryde. That's, like I said, 82 was that was her early years, and I've kind of grew up with her, or if you, I'm not sure I grew up actually, but not sure she did either. But and Emma Frost in particular, these are characters that I'm very drawn to. But I think this book is one because of how different it is. It's not an X-Men book, at least out of the starting gate in this issue, in the way that certainly X-Men and Uncanny X-Men are. I'm curious to see where this book continues to go. I enjoyed the first issue. This is an example of a book, and I would say that to anybody listening to this, I would read the other books first before you would get into this one. And if you're looking for additional like X-Men content, this is that book for more X-Men content. That's kind of where I'm at on this one. It sounds like a negative on it. I enjoyed it, but it's definitely one that I needed the other books in order to feel like it had a spot.
Yep, fair enough. We'll head over to Jim.
I'll tell you, this is one of those books that first read through, it had a lower rating than second and third read throughs. Because I do my read throughs, I do a read through, then I do an art read through where I just look at the images, and then I do a third reading where I'm taking my time. I already know what happened in the story. I already got a good understanding of what it looks like, and you really start diving into what they're trying to tell you. And I think it was within the third read through that I started enjoying this book a lot more than my first read throughs. That first initial read through, I was like, okay, Kitty. Oh, Kitty's not Kitty. Kitty's angry. What's going on with Kitty? And I kept asking myself, what's going on with Kitty? And then she had the one line in there where she's like, I'd rather live among the people who hate me than among the shattered of what I used to have. And I'm like, ooh, that's kind of deep there. Kitty has some PTSD going on from something that happened before this. I don't know what it was. And it looked like Kitty went to a dark place, in the previous adventures. Again, all this stuff is getting me wanting to read what happened before that. And that was something we're diving in more. And I think for me, this book had benefited from a lack of combat. in there. You had one, you had that really neat sequence where again you get that little girl lashes out and Kitty jumps to the rescue, and we get to see, Kitty Pryde can still throw down. She's still an X-Men. And whether she says she doesn't want to be, she still is. She still has the skills and the training, and I love seeing that kick in. But I think this book definitely, benefited from having and I'm doing air quotes around, slower pace, where they're just spending time as Kitty every day, working in the bar, hanging out with her roommate, going to a concert on the wrong night, just the general living a normal life kind of moments, and then you had the panic attacks, the anxiety, again, all these flare-ups that are going through. And like, this book benefited from having that kind of stuff. And I really like that. And I especially the one art scene right at the very beginning of the book when we're seeing the different cities, and then you go into the bar where she's working, the amount of time they spent on showing everyone in the bar laughing and joking and having fun. You can kind of hear the humor, you can hear the jovialness, and you can see then the look on Kitty's face where there's no joy. She's surrounded by everyone laughing and joking. Yeah, she's working. So, but there's still a lot of bartenders that I've dealt with that they're cracking and joking and laughing along with everybody else. Kitty's all work.
Yeah.
I think that was a really neat thing that art read through really hit home for me.
Yeah. Well, and Kitty's been through a lot. In fact, to fill you in a little bit on her time in Krakoa, Jim, Kitty Pryde was one of the few people who could not get on the island. Something about her powers did not play nice with the gates that the X-Men used to enter Krakoa. And so she essentially became a pirate in a lot of ways. She became one of the members of the Marauders pirate crew that would go around the world trying to save mutants and bring them to safety in Krakoa. That was one of her main things during that era. She also became really tight with Emma, as I was discussing with her on again, off again. Do I hate you? Do I like you? Friendship with Emma. She was Emma's Red Queen during this time. She essentially was Red Queen of Krakoa's Hellfire Club, while Emma was the White Queen. So she had power in this position, and also, she was doing her best to save people. The thing is, she could never actually be a true member of that community that she herself was trying to build.
I mean, she could be on the island. She just couldn't go through the gates and be a part of the teleporting gate community like everybody else was.
Exactly. And you
just had to plan ahead for her to come over.
Right. It did kind of separate her in that aspect. And then when everything went down with Krakoa, she basically just wanted a normal life. And it's not the first time in her X career that she's wanted this. It's happened before. She's kind of the most aloof X-Man in that way. There have been many, many times where she has been either in Chicago or another city working as a waitress or a bartender, trying to mind her own P's and Q's and not actually be a part of it. But if you want to quote, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. It feels like that happens to her every damn time, because you can take the hero away from being a hero, but it never stops you from being one. And I think that is what's on display in this particular book here, with Kitty and clearly what's to come one way or the other. She could try to veg out on the couch watching Real Housewives of whatever made up Marvel city you want, to try to pass the time. But here we go. Real Housewives of Wondagore. There we go. To pass the time. But eventually she's going to wind up suiting back up again. And she's brought to that in this book. I will say, though, that this book is kind of the most deceptive in some ways, because we talk about this all the time. When you put characters on a cover, and then none of them wind up showing up. We do get 3 of them. So to be fair, we do get 3 of those characters, but Emma's in it for like 1 page. And this new character that we're introduced to is essentially the central foil in it. But we have absolutely no idea what's winding up with these other 2 on this cover at this particular point, and they're most definitely not a team yet. So calling this Exceptional X-Men and being like, this is your team book, is not actually true at this point in time with issue 1. We will get there, hopefully, but it's very much not the case with this first issue.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, only in the sense that I think it needed to be there because you got to know where this book's going in order to have, I think, the buy-in to kind of follow the story. Because I think one of my issues with the book, at least early on, and kind of where I'm at, it's weird to say issues, but I'm not where I want to be yet where I'm hoping I'm going to be with this book. And that's where what you're saying about the cover. I want to see how this is going to become a team. And you're not going to get that in the first issue with where this story's going. I think what it did well was I'm following the story of Kitty, who is a character I care about. But Kitty's on a journey right now where she does not want to be a part of any of this, which as a reader, I'm feeling. And we get to certain points, especially when we see the introduction of one of the 3 characters on the cover, where we're starting to see the hope of what is going to draw Kitty back in. So it starts to bring me up. And I'm starting to get curious about, okay, how are we going to get there? And what is that going to look like? And am I going to buy into Kitty wanting to be a part of it again? And where is that going to be? Those are things that were working real well for me. I was riding along with her and I'm like, okay, I'm getting there. But I feel like the first issue kind of all felt like that throughout it, a feeling out process that I was going on the journey with Kitty, which I can be a fan of. But this is going to be one of those books where I need the first arc to really let me know how I'm going to feel about this book, because I've got to see this team come together. So only I'm slightly disagreeing with you is the sense I think I needed to see on the cover, like, okay, that's where this is going. Okay, I would like to see, I want to at least follow through and see when we get to this to see how I feel about this. As far as understanding the journey, I also do think that's where I'm adamantly, I think we're pretty much on the same page with this. I felt this book needed to be the last one of the main X titles to be released, because I need a couple of X books that I can go on right now and go, okay, these feel like X-Men books. You can play around with this one because you've given me the other 2. If you haven't given me the other 2, I'm going to be bothered by this one. Whereas I'm feeling like this is the experimental book out of the batch as far as its journey. And I'm okay with them giving me an experimental book with the amount of books we're getting.
I agree with that, and everything you said about it being the last book again makes perfect sense to establish everything and then get here. And I 100% agree with you that if this was the first one out of the box, I'd be like, what are we getting into? Brent, I have a feeling your opinions are probably pretty similar.
John's less further down the road than I am on this book. So I had pulled up a thesaurus when we first started talking about this of other adjectives we could put on this X-Men. And so here's the ones that I think would be fitting for this title, just in terms of the number of words, because just bad doesn't do it. Abominable X-Men apparently is a synonym for bad. Abysmal, atrocious. I also like dissatisfactory, and the one I was going to go with was erroneous because it also starts with an E. So erroneous X-Men, inadequate X-Men, unsatisfactory X-Men is what I would call this book. For $5, $4.99 down here, and I haven't picked up physical comics in forever. I'm mostly digital and trades, right? $5. You're going to put all these characters on a book, and I'm only going to see one of them, Kitty Pryde. Fine, call it a Kitty Pryde book. But don't put Emma front center on this dang cover, and not even tell me who these other people are. And I barely learned Trista's name. I had to go hunting for it. It's on like the second to last page she appears on. X Factor, met all these guys. I know who they are. NYX, met all these guys. I know who they are. They're on the cover. Hey, who's on the cover of Atrocious X-Men #1? I can't tell you because they're not in there. And there's even other pages of like the letters pages in Phoenix referring to these other two characters on the covers, whose names we don't know yet. So I'm just going to call them these innocuous characters over here. They're like, who are these guys? Read Atrocious X-Men to find out. And I'm like, nope, you won't, because it's not there. And I can't not call this book Atrocious X-Men, because that's what it is, apparently. Nothing against Eve Ewing and Carmen Carnero. Like, this story is just fine. It should be a number 0 issue. There's no hook for me to go into reading number 2. To be like the end and then be like, just kidding. I really wanted to throw this book through the wall if it was made of paper, because I was so mad, because that's when it finally got interesting. Oh, here's Emma messing around with the X-Men and playing around with people's heads. She's got something she wants to do, and she's trying to find who she wants to work with. Banshee, no, screw that guy. Storm, too messy. She's got her own book. Bishop, intriguing, but I don't know why she didn't say yes to that guy. Maybe she's into girls now. Who knows? Logan, already did that. Kurt Wagner, that's Nightcrawler, right? Like, he's pass. He seems like a bore to hang out with too if she's drinking and having fun in the hotel. Kitty Pryde, interesting. All right, cool. That should be issue like page 1, 2, and 3 of this book, and instead it's page 15, 16, 17 of the end, or whatever it is, 32, 6 pages. This book, while the story is just fine, the art is well done. Reminds me of Scott Eaton, but to a better level. Carmen Carnero doing a great job. Just a waste of $5 for me.
I had a very strong Paul Pelletier vibe from the artwork. I think that especially with the faces, that was the artist that I immediately thought of while reading this book. But yes, I do agree that most of this story, had you put it on the Unlimited app as one of their Unlimited comics, and then had the main story be the first issue, I probably would have been a lot happier with this.
Don't even get me started about the Unlimited app. I saw an article in Bleeding Cool that said apparently there's some X-Men Unlimited story on the app today that says, for real, freaking Beast is a clone. And then for real, what is going on with Magneto? And I'm like, why isn't that in issue number 1 or 2 or 3 of the freaking X-Men book? Mm-hmm. And is it going to be printed in trade? Absolutely not. It's by different creators. Like, what? The fact... Okay, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, because nobody's going to find out about it because it's on some stupid app. But apparently Magneto is powerless and stuck in Xavier's chair for some reason. That's why he's floating around with Max.
Okay.
He's powerless. Like, that would have been a good hook in number 1. I know that even in number 2, which he doesn't even appear in until the last page.
I'm sure
done.
I'm sure they will bring it up in the main book, but I'm also not surprised that they did it in the Unlimited, because they've been trying to hawk these Unlimiteds to people who subscribe to it. But anybody who doesn't subscribe to it and is just reading X-Men is out a little bit of story. So yeah, it's a 6-in-1, 0 in the other type of situation, because you either get it or you don't even know that it's happening because you don't have the app.
Hey Brent, I'm a little confused. Did you enjoy the book or not?
Well, turns out it was his favorite of the bunch. No.
Well, no, here's the thing.
Jim, we're going to provide a QR code that will explain to everyone.
Oh,
hey,
okay.
to this book's credit, no QR code. What? It's not.
Yeah, there is. Oh, yeah, there is.
It's not in the Kindle app. It's not in the Kindle app version. Wow. Huh. So I can't even access that. Hold on. Hold it up. Hold it up to the. Oh, come on.
This is Inception, y'all. I'm holding up the phone for the audio listeners to the screen. This is why you should watch the YouTube feed or just check in with it and give us a view when I'm describing this. I'm holding up the phone to the screen, and the panel is literally 3/4 of this extra page is someone looking at their phone of a yoga app or a yoga ad. What a wasteless freaking panel. Wow. I'm not cursing because Sean's here. And then you learn that that's Iceman Bobby Drake at the bottom, looking at a yoga ad.
Can you
Thank you very much.
Can you do me a favor and go back to the QR code so I can hopefully scan it with my iPad?
Why waste your time?
I totally want this, man. Like, this is the most meta thing I could possibly do. All right, here we go. Let's see. Can I read it? Yep. There we go. Boom. That is officially the only way that I had access to that QR code.
Nice.
Because it is not in the Kindle version of this particular book. That makes no sense. Oh my God. Oh,
By the way, Jim, did you notice you're not supposed to curse around me?
Oh no.
I just know Raging Bullets has always been a clean show, so I'm trying not to.
that's
But why am I not? We're on Comic Timing episode 228.
Right. That's right. We are definitely billing this as a comic timing episode.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, serious question now. Okay. With Emma Frost now, does Kitty not know she's in her head?
Yeah, I believe that is the case. I believe she does not. Yeah.
Because again, I know the White Queen and I know her, but I don't really know her recent stuff, and I don't know, the powers as well as what it was and what it is now. So she's a character that when I saw her on the cover, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get to know who she is now, and I will probably issue 2 or 3, but so yeah. So again, for me, I'll tell you, I liked the book just because of, but again, it was the multiple read throughs that locked me into this book, so but I completely understand any disagreement or hatred towards it, because I can't argue. I don't have an argument against, oh no, you're wrong. No, you're right. I can see your point about, having people on the cover that aren't in the book, but I don't know. For me, I think because I've got less baggage with a lot of this stuff, I'm going into it more optimistic and positive about what we're getting. And I think that's one of my advantages I have over you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I enjoyed the story that was inside of this. What I didn't enjoy nearly as much is the fact that so much of this felt like it could have been an annual for a book or something like that. Like
a zero issue comic was great. I think that this very easily could have been a zero issue, or yeah.
Yeah, no, that a zero issue is definitely the best place for this to go. And I'm a little bit surprised that that's not the way that they actually wound up going in the long run. Sorry, I'm actually messaging myself the link to this because it's not coming up for me in my shared history either. So now I first need to access it that way to actually read the damn thing while we're talking about it. But I enjoy the character of Kitty Pryde, and if this was a solo Kitty Pryde book, it would make a lot more sense for me that they spent as much time on this as they did. And I don't know, it just that's kind of what rubbed me the wrong way in the end is spending this much time on one character, even if it is Kitty Pryde, a character that I love. The entire setup is that, and this new character of Trista, sorry, that I enjoyed the touching moments with her and her grandmother, and I even like the setup of her trying to get into the club and stuff like that, and I appreciate the fact that she turns gold because that's pretty cool. But it's just not enough to sell me, and it was a little bit disappointing in that way, because I was looking forward to this for the interaction between Kitty and Emma, and we don't get that in this.
And look, there's cool stuff on this cover. They've all got like semi-matching uniforms, like we were talking about with what was it, X-Men?
Yeah,
but I don't get to see any of that.
Yeah.
Why did I spend $5?
Oh, I do also appreciate, as a side note, that all of the original X-Men in one form or another appeared in these relaunch titles.
Bobby Drake did not.
Bobby Drake is right there in the bonus page.
That doesn't count.
Well, but from what I hear, I believe he is going to be showing up in this book to come. This isn't a throwaway Robert Drake for Standby to Chicago. Clearly, that's where Kitty is, and that's where this book is going to be based out of. So we're going to be getting him as one of the core members of this book, or at least an extended guest star, one way or the other. So once you get that, we've got Scott in X-Men, we've got Jean in her own book, we've got Beast over in X-Men, we've got Angel over in X Factor, and we've got Iceman here in Exceptional. So all the original 5 have at least one place to go, which is nice to see.
I feel bad because like this could be an interesting title. I don't know where it's going to go, but I feel bad because I predict this will not last more than 12 issues because like there's no for all the people that went and bought the line of the new X books or something like that. Think about people like Jim. If Jim wasn't so positive and looking about the great things about everything, he would have picked up this book and had my reaction and said, "What is this? Screw this. I'm not going to get issue number 2 because if it's $5 or $4, why bother?" There are a lot of people out there that are probably going to be that, and I feel bad because this has the potential to be a great book. But since there's no hook here in terms of what the purpose of the book is, then I don't know. Like NYX, we kind of figured out it's a team book, but at least we had all the or not a team book. It might be a spotlight book. It might be a team book. We don't know, but at least we met all the characters enough to be interested. X-Men's an X-Men book. Uncanny's going to be this kind of weird journey road book, maybe. Phoenix, she's off in space dealing with Phoenix stuff. X Factor, yeah, we killed all the characters, but at least we know that's the concept. It could be a new run every issue. We don't know yet. Like this is just, it's just. I feel really bad for this team that's working on it, that the editor let them go through with this. I'm going to blame it on the editor, Tom Brevoort. I'm looking at you as the head guy to be like, hey, this isn't the way you launch a new number 1 of an X-Men book with an X in the title. Maybe we should do something else.
Can I also comment on, you want to talk about the screwy aging of the Marvel Universe? Kitty Pryde is now old enough to work at a bar, so that means that she's at least 21 or over. But characters like Jubilee have only aged like 5 years since they were introduced, if that. Some of the other New Mutants, it's nebulous how old they are. And when Kitty was introduced back in the late 70s, she was 13. So that means that she's aged at least 8 years, if not 9 years, in the course of the books that she's been in.
There's the way that like Kitty Pryde is not 30. Like to me, all the original X-Men are like in their 40s, and Kitty Pryde and Wolverines doesn't count, but like Kitty Pryde probably in her mid 30s. Jubilee to me is like late 20s because all these other kids are in their teens. Like that's how it works for me. So there's no way that she has not been around the X-Men for 10 years.
Yeah.
Less than 10 years.
According to Comic Book Resources, or sorry, CBR, which is not exactly a reputable source anymore, Cyclops is supposedly around 30 to 31.
No way. No freaking way.
Yeah, but Kitty being about 10 years younger than him makes sense canonically. Just because, they were the original team of X-Men and they started in the 60s and Kitty Pryde started in the late 70s. So
disbelief.
Yeah, I know. But sliding time scale. People are as old as we need them to be. That's the way comics work. And if you try to think about it too much, your brain will quite literally explode.
But yet Magneto will always be a person in the Holocaust until the end of time.
Yes.
He's going to be the timeless, ageless villain. It's going to become Apocalypse at some point when the X-Men are still around in 3032, and he's still going to be a Holocaust guy.
Both him and Xavier have had their bodies cloned like 4 different times. So that's
Scott will still be 31. Magneto will be 1,000 years old.
Wasn't Magneto a baby at one point?
Yes, he was. Yeah. He got better, but at one point he did
better. I like that. He was a baby, but then he got better.
We have all the time about when somebody dies and comes back to life in comics. Like, it's okay, he got better, but I don't know. And look, this book had a corgi in it. It had one of Kitty Pryde's, junior high school friends, and it had her living her life in Chicago and everything. And it also establishes this team in another area of the U.S. because that's the way that we're going with all these different teams being in different spots. But yeah, it could have given me more. It really could have given me more. Unfortunately, that's why when I give a rating of this, I think I'm giving it about a 2.5. I think that I will read more to see where this whole thing with Emma is going, whether or not Bobby winds up in it, because I'm an Iceman fan, and what's happening with these other mutants we haven't met yet, but didn't really give me a lot this time around. I got to give it about a 2.5. Brent?
As the atrocious X-Men book, this is a definite one. I'd liked it less than you. As a Kitty Pryde book, however, it's a strong 3.
Jim?
I love that. That's good. Well, again, I'm a solid 3.5, maybe even almost a 4. Again, it's, as I said, first through it was a solid 2. I was like, oh yeah. And then as I started diving into it and really started getting the groove of it, that's when the stuff started going up. So it's a solid 3.5, maybe even up to a 4, depending on how things flow out.
All right, fair enough. Sean?
It's one where I've been struggling where to place it, and actually Brent kind of helped in his distinction between the two. I'm kind of a 3.5 with this one. I was more solid 3. Where I'm putting the 3.5 piece in, I actually agree with the concept of I really like it as a Kitty Pryde story, and the journey in the bar and everything that we were going on with Kitty Pryde was great. I'm still going to say it's a 3 overall because I'm really looking at this as the exceptional X-Men team book that I'm looking for. I think what'll solidify it to a higher rating will be where this arc goes. I like to give a book like this a good arc. I feel like with the 3 where it's at, it's given me enough that I want to read issue 2, and I'm hoping issue 2 kind of solidifies what this is going to be. There was a here that makes me, I think the 0 issue comment is an interesting one because I feel like 0 issues, a lot of times when I read them, they kind of get me intrigued to read issue 1. So I feel like this has done that. I want to read next issue, which I feel will feel more like the issue 1 that I was looking for in this piece. There was things I liked in this quite a bit, where if it builds to something, I'm really intrigued where it goes. So I don't hate the book by any stretch. I'm just I'm glad this was the final release out of the X-Men titles because I feel like this is the one that's doing exactly what I thought, where it's going to be a little bit more experimental and that type of thing, which those can be really fun books. It's a hopeful 3 is where I'm at.
All right, fair enough. Out of curiosity, by the way, since you guys did read X-Force, where does X-Force take place? Since it seems like all these X books are taking place in different locations.
It takes place in different locations.
Yeah.
The idea is there's some sort of like rift, and Forge is leading the team to close these rifts.
Got it. Okay.
He's getting his bus tour that he was looking for.
It's the bus
It
tour.
is, but they're like doing stuff. They're not like interacting, hanging out.
Oh God. Great. All right. You're convincing me to read X-Force when it does hit the Unlimited app. I think I'm gonna wind up doing that. But yeah. So this is the end of this round of the From the Ashes books. I know we still have a Storm book that's coming out in a few weeks, and the rest of these books are going to be continuing with their following issues. I think X-Men's already up to issue 3, if not issue 4 at this point. And as are a bunch of the other books. And for those of you who have read forward, how is the line coalescing so far? How has the continued story affected you, and do you see yourself continuing with these books moving forward? Brent, I'll start with you on that one, since I know you've read a little bit of the of most of these books at this point.
Yeah, I still haven't read NYX 2. I've been meaning to read that. I read Phoenix 1 and 2, and I really like the interaction with Corsair. Uncanny X-Men, I read number 2, and that explains the Woods girl a little bit. So that's more intriguing. I don't know if there's an X Factor 2, and I know X-Men has like 3. I think there's 3 issues out as we record this, and maybe the 4th comes out tomorrow. That one's okay. X-Men so far seems like it's doing a one and done ish format. Not, I think they're all interconnected, but it's not cliffhanger next scene. It's like here's a scene. 3 days later, here's another thing, and they are kind of tying in.
Got it. And do you see yourself continuing with these books past what you've read?
If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Uncanny, just because it's supposed to be like the flagship, and I like how well Gale did issue number 1. And if I had to pick 2, I'd pick NYX also. X-Men, I think I could take it or leave it. I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Jim, as the newcomer to this particular period in time, do you see yourself continuing with all these books? What have you read past this, and what would be your standout?
Well, I haven't read past it just because I didn't want to have now future knowledge
Mm.
because I'm an idiot and I will spoil future stuff. So
No,
it's
no,
safer.
I've never seen you do that before.
No. So, so I've definitely wanted to keep this safe. So I haven't read anything intentionally.
Okay.
So Uncanny and X-Men are both two books that I'm jumping on to as soon as we're done here. The X-Force is another one I'm 100% jumping into. I really enjoyed that concept. Um, the and this the Kitty Pride book I want to read more of, and the Nyx, I'm kind of curious about that one, but Nyx is going to wait until probably it comes out in the app.
Okay.
But these other books I'm picking up digitally,
Okay.
just because I don't want to wait for the app yet.
Mhm.
Eventually I'll shift those into the app mode, but right now, like Uncanny, I already have it, and it's just I'm probably jump on it, start reading it as soon as we hang up. you know,
Well, I highly appreciate you calling it Knicks, by the way, because in my head, New York Knicks, it just makes absolute sense. So that's the official designation for that book moving forward. Sean, what about you?
So I kind of did what Jim did as far as the first issues that we talked about today. I didn't read the issues afterwards just to be consistent with our last recording for where I was at. But for the books that we did do this recording, X-Men, I got caught up on, not because I had to, because I wanted to. I found I'm really enjoying the book so far. So that one I'm going to continue on with. Um, the same thing with NYX. NYX, I read that one first after our last recording because I was so excited to read more of that series after our last conversation, and I'm finding that book to be a lot of fun. So I'm caught up with issue 2. I'm looking forward to issue 3. X Factor, I'm with Brent. I don't think X Factor 2's out, but I do want to read X Factor 2. So that's a case. And obviously I'm going to say right now, it was very hard for me not to read the second issue of Uncanny.
Oh, yeah.
I really wanted to. I just was trying to stay consistent with myself and just kind of give my feelings based on issue 1. I'm actually glad Exceptional X-Men #2 wasn't out too, for the same reason, because I feel like my goal here was to talk about issue 1 and kind of where I'm at with it. And I'll be just to see where that series goes. I do want to read issue 2 though. I kind of want to see where this is going, and I'm hopeful for it. So there's nothing that I read out of this that I don't want to continue on with right now. I'm hoping that it maintains that momentum though. Series tend to, after like the first arc, that's kind of make or break for me. If the first arc is a satisfying wrap up to it, I'll continue on. These all have me wanting to read the first arc, and that's a mission accomplished on my end in various degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, NYX, I jumped on that one right afterwards. That's a sleeper hit for me out of this whole thing. Uncanny, I knew I was going to feel this way. I think the bigger surprise for me was the bar went higher than even I was expecting.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I'd say it's. I haven't read any issue 2s yet because, as I said, I am waiting for the app at this point. I love comics. I love where comics are right now as a medium. They're too damn expensive, and I can't bring myself at this point to buy a $4 comic on the regular, especially for Marvel, when I'm already paying for the unlimited app for a year. So I'm about to re-up on the unlimited app, and when I do, I will be reading the issue 2s when they come out. Of those issue 2s, Uncanny X-Men's top of the list for me. MYX is right underneath that. And then actually probably Phoenix as my number 3. Just because I like my spacefaring X-Men and I enjoy my Starjammers. So that's going to be number 3 for me. And then after that, probably X-Men and X Factor, and Exceptional X-Men, in that order. And I honestly don't think that they're bad books in any way. I think that Exceptional X-Men is the weakest, but I'll tell you this, if I read issue 2 and there still is a character that has not been introduced from this cover, I'm going to be very annoyed. And I think that they're going to have to bring that together in that second issue, even if they don't, even if it's a last page reveal and we get the last character, like I'm fine with that as long as we actually get the characters on this damn cover. So that's the way I feel.
I will only be satisfied if they introduce all the characters if the final character is introduced in a QR code contained within the QR code.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much for that inception moment.
So you need to like have your phone in front of an iPad to scan the QR code to be able to pull up that page.
You know what, Sean? I mean this from the bottom of my heart. That's not how these work.
It is now.
Insert Inception bong here, man. That's
Ian, do you think they're going to have the QR code in the app versions of these?
I really, really hope not, but they probably are.
No. Here's what they're gonna do.
It's a straight port from the Kindle
They're gonna
thing.
give you an address where you can mail it for the page.
and everybody who mails for that gets no prize along with it. It'll be great. Oh man,
I appreciate the fact that they tried something experimental. I actually applaud. Please keep trying experimental things. They don't all work really well. In the case of the QR code, I'm glad it looks like they're going to be moving away from that piece. I appreciate the fact that comics are still trying experimental things to make this fun. So the attempt is something I can appreciate. I just don't want to read this way.
I agree 100% with that. I'm looking to see if one of the issues may have hit at this point, because I think X-Men might still be. Oh, you know what? Actually, I think Uncanny is on here. So I am going to scroll to the last page of Uncanny 1 and see whether or not they have the frickin' QR in real time here. And the answer is they have the page. In the Unlimited app, they just straight up have the page. So that is a good thing for me to see. I had no idea that Uncanny #1 had already hit the app, because that's early. August 7th, this was released, and this is September 17th. So I guess there's only a month lead now on books before they hit. I don't know, but
some books they do an early release though.
Okay.
I can imagine at this point with that one, I think it's more than a month lead normally, but I would imagine this one with the buzz around it, that's a great way. If you did not pick this up, here's why you should.
Yeah.
And that one did great numbers the first time through. So I could see them trying to grab anybody maybe who didn't pick up the paper first issue.
Yeah, that's a good call on that, because I'm looking here, and it does not appear that the X-Men book, which quite literally came out first in the line, is available yet in the app, but Uncanny is. So that's just an early release, I guess. But if that is in any indication, the everything that was behind a QR will not be behind a QR in the Unlimited app, at least. So step in the right direction. And on that note, I enjoyed talking QR codes with you gentlemen a great deal. The books, but QR codes I could talk about forever. So, no, this was a great time. I highly appreciate it. This is 4 hours of excellent content, all here with 6 issues of X, with a little bit of X-Force thrown in for good measure. Sean and Jim, thank you guys so much for joining us for this, and we definitely got to do this again sooner than later.
Thank you both. I mean, honestly, our history together, the 4 of us, and really, I don't know. And I think back fondly to the number of years I've been doing podcasting. It's you guys have been such an important part of it that it's great to be able to get back together with you. It stinks that this has been so long, but it's always just like we had just done this yesterday. So thank you so much for helping put this together. And I'm glad we got a chance to do this. This was fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a ball, man. I always have a ball talking to you guys. So this was fun. I'm glad we did it, and it's one of those weird things where, I always joke around with people about, all the different friends I have from the podcast, and like, Ian, you're my New York guy. I'm like, oh, I got a buddy of mine in New York, And it's, I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, and people are like, are these real friends? I'm like, yes, I've actually met them. Do I talk to them directly? Usually no, but I have actually met these people. I've actually been in the same room with them, but it's, and you're still friends. This is, how we do things now. And it was funny, when the pandemic hit all those years ago, were like, hey, stay at home, don't be around people. We've been preparing for this our whole life. We were golden. We were ready for it. So it didn't bother us. And we still have these interactions. We still have fun. So, and the Zoom stuff is kind of interesting for me. So
yeah, it is. And you know what, Jim? You will always be my ambassador of QR.
yeah.
I love that you're painting yourself as this person that people question whether or not you have friends, which is not true at all. Anybody who met you is like immediately likable and people adore you. But I'm like, they're like, yeah, no. Like people are like, you got a New York friend? Yes. Is this a real person, Jim? That doesn't happen.
Oh, no. He's in New York. You probably
if
never.
If anything, I'm the one doing the Lobot cosplay, and you think people be questioning that with me? It's like.
Wow, I'm never going to not see you as Lobot, Sean. That's
Always do the self-deprecating stuff first, then nobody else can.
Exactly.
100%. But guys, honestly, everything you said, Jim, is 100% true. We've known each other for years, and it's like picking up like where we last left off. Whenever we do one of these, it's definitely got to be sooner than later. We'll get together and we'll talk comics again in the not too distant future, I am sure. And remind folks who are not currently listening to this on your own feed where they can find Raging Bullets.
This place to go is ragingbullets.com. It's our show website, and it's a link, and there's links to all of our episodes. You can see upcoming content that we're going to be doing. And it's great to have an opportunity to shout this out to friends of ours, either who we've connected with in the past with you, or new friends we can make as far as just having this opportunity to chat with you guys again.
Absolutely. Excellent. And Mr. Casina, where can they find your bullets that happen to be BK?
BK's bullets can be found on YouTube in front of this shelf, just a little bit taller. I usually stand. There you go.
Fantastic, and find it there. And you can also find it linked on our YouTube. Be sure to check that out as well. And with that, time for some credits, which will roll right about now. The email address for Comic Timing is comictiming@gmail.com, facebook.com/Comic Timing for all your comic timing stuff. And be sure to check us out on the Comic Timing fan group as well for some wonderful comic book conversation. We've been having some great fun over there, and really want you guys to check that out. Send us an iTunes review if you haven't already done so. It's a good place to go. I know it's technically called Apple Podcasts now, but it'll always be iTunes to me. Twitter.com/Comic Timing Pod on Twitter. We are on Blue Sky as Comic Timing, Instagram, Comic Timing Podcast, and of course, the YouTube channel with videos where you can see our faces is over at youtube.com/Comic Timing Podcast. And once again, big thanks to Sean, Jim, and Brent. And as always, there's always time for comics, as I accidentally played the intro version and we're out.
I was going to say.
That was an atrocious ending, an abominable ending. Adjective.
Wait, in some ways extraordinary.
That's fair.